The Fed is lowering rates, right? Who wants lower rates? Okay. I mean, we as consumers, we want lower rates, right? Because the car loans go down, mortgages go down, but then it doesn't depend on what the Fed is doing. Fed wants lower rates for who? Well, Fed wants lower rates for themselves. Why? When you have $36 trillion in national debt, interest has to be paid on that. That debt has to be serviced. There is a cost to all of this. And the cost is not free. It was free, almost free, at zero for 15 years. After the great financial crisis, we lowered the rates to zero. We kept it there. We were just about to raise them because inflation was coming. And what happened? The pandemic showed up. So for 15 years, we had zero interest rates. Okay, cool. Well, that created the inflation. We raised the rates. Well, when you raise the rates, you're not just raising it for the consumer, you're raising it for the US government too. Because these notes, bonds, there's many tranches of these, right? There's treasury bills, which is up to a year, short term. Then there's treasury notes, which is up to 10 year, 20 year. And then there's treasury bonds, 30 year. These are all IOUs that because of our deficit of yearly deficit of $2.5 to $3 trillion, we have to create these bonds and notes and T-bills and put it out as IOUs to pension plans, to other governments, basically we need to borrow money. And when you're borrowing money, like you go to the bank, right? They're going to charge you an interest rate. While US supposedly, right, has the best rating in the world, supposedly guaranteed money if you lend money to the US government, because the US dollar is still the global reserve currency, right? But on one hand, we keep printing money constantly and issuing these IOUs. Well, when we raised the rates from 0 to 5%, the Fed raised the rates, their servicing costs went through the roof, okay? Now, not only we are raising the rates on the consumer, we're raising the rates on the US government. And when these bonds mature and their coupon, it's called a coupon, or the interest rate they offer was 0 or 1 or 1.5, well, that's skyrocketing now. And I've done videos in the past again about just the servicing cost of our debt of 36 trillion is up to $1.2 trillion a year. That's interest that we're paying to somebody. $1.2 trillion a year because the servicing cost went up from 0 to 3.5%. And here they are. The US national debt is getting more expensive without a question. The average interest rate on Treasury debt rose to 3.4% last month. And there's a Kobesi letter. I follow him on Twitter. Please go do so. Look at this oval. Look at this chart. This is our cost of, this is what we need to pay the world, pay the pension plans, whoever's holding this debt, whoever's holding this bag, right? We need to pay more and more and more and more interest. So not only the US national debt keeps going up a trillion every 100 days, the interest cost on that is going up because all the old maturing bonds with lower interest rates will have to get replaced, and an extra couple of $1 trillion a year, we have to pay interest on that. So interest rates on US debt have more than doubled over the last 2 years. Yeah, because the Fed raised rates, bonds are maturing, we have to pay more. Simple math, really. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. 6.4 trillion of the debt is currently held in treasury bills with an average interest rate of 4.7%. And that's the interest we're paying on these IOUs on the T-bill side. 14.4 trillion and 4.8 trillion are in treasury notes and treasury bonds, and with an average rate of 2.8 to 3.2%. Well, look where the rates were in 2020, right? Literally like 1%, because we were at 0, but then we have to pay some sort of return to the bond buyer or note buyer. And look where we are now, okay? In effect, the total net interest cost hit a record annualized rate of 1.1 trillion. It's at 1.2 trillion now. Truly, truly mind-blowing numbers. No doubt, right? So who needs the lower interest rates the most? It's the US government. All these notes and bonds and treasury bills that are maturing. So the process works like this. I go to the U.S. government. I buy a treasury note. Let's say I buy a 2-year note. U.S. government, the treasury was paying me 1%. Okay. And you know this from your old savings accounts. What happened in the banks? What happened to your money market accounts? You're making more money, right? It used to be 0. Now it's up to 4.5%. If you go to Robinhood is paying you 4.5 APY on your existing cash balance. Well, you're benefiting from it to a point. But when inflation is 6-7%, nominally 4.5% that you're getting is still losing your money, but it's better than losing 6-7. But so I go buy these two-year notes from the Treasury. For 2 years, they have to pay me 1% interest on that. Well, now they mature. Well, I want to renew them again, right? Well, next time I go, now they have to pay me 3%, as Kobesi letters adjusted. Next time they mature, I go back, and if the rates are still here, now you have to pay me 4%. Well, that's the interest rate cost for the U.S. government. So I believe the U.S. government needs more than anybody, lower rates. And this is not going to end well, right? There is a lot of talk about DOGE and, Elon and Vivek and fixing things. And then they stretched their muscle last week. There was a bill, right? The U.S. government is running out of the debt ceiling. They have to raise the debt ceiling because we need to issue more IOUs. Without that, we can't. Well, Congress, in order to do that, they had a reconciliation bill of 1,600 pages of pork barrel stuff in there, most likely. And what did Elon and Vivek do? They go, no, we're not going to do that, right? And they cut the thing down to 1,500 pages. 150 pages from 1,500 pages. Got rid of all that. Supposedly, DOGE is still working. Look, I am not a DOGE or this or that. They're going to have a difficult time. The politics is being played as usual in Washington, and I guess we're going to find out, because a lot of in that bill, by the way, there was a 40% hike for the House members. Think about it, right? They want to pay themselves more to put us in this situation of $36 trillion of debt and $1.2 trillion of interest cost. These are the people who want to give themselves a 40% raise. And supposedly Elon said no, and the bill got shot down. Now supposedly there's a new one, so, that they're going to vote on. But what I'm saying is that at least it feels like somebody's in control now, that we can say no to these people to spend our tax dollars frivolously and give themselves a 40% raise. So, we'll see. We'll see where it all ends up. But 36 trillion in debt, 1.2 trillion in interest cost is not a good thing.